liberty, and justice for all. And I'll open it up for oral communications from the public. Nope. All right, Jeff is good. You know what? We lost my comments, but that's okay, because I didn't have any tonight, so I guess that's good. Moving on to item 4, the consent agenda. I'll note the donations, a check in the amount of $3,200 from the Salisbury Elementary School PTA to be used toward the Salisbury Elementary School Reach for Reading School-Wide Literacy Program. Can I please have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
I don't think you guys need to tip anymore. All right, any discussion? All in favor? All right, it's unanimous.
I was just going to say, so maybe we just a quick lesson on the microphones.
I was going to throw that in my chairman's comments to, you know, get the new microphone here.
Yeah, so I believe, yeah. So they're hot,
Sorry, Bob.
right?
They're all on.
So Bob, for those not watching this, so we are streaming tonight and being recorded. This equipment is thanks to the Newbury Cable Program Committee, I don't know what the correct word is there, as well as some funds coming from the Salisbury, from SCTV. Eventually, this will also have the ability to broadcast this live to Comcast. That is not happening yet. Newbury and Rowley have an easier connection to Comcast. Getting it over the river is another challenge. Bob has been working with Lance Wisniewski from SCTV, and they believe there's a coder-encoder digital way that they'll be able to not just stream it live, but actually carry this, our meetings live on SCTV. So this is the new technology, there's new cameras. Bob just informed me that we're now streaming in HD. So he's excited. I'm not so much. So a little extra makeup, a little less, I don't know, Tony, I'm going to the gym. So the microphone in front of you, so Bob is going to be able to, for tonight, it's just all on. You see the green. If you hit the push where it says push, it turns red, and then it's muted. And then it's muted. So just so that you have the control over that. But for now, Bob's managing the mute, unmute, and then we'll just kind of take this as it goes as we learn the new technology. Any other rules?
So we won't be doing this.
You don't need to pull it too close.
Thank you. That was how this all started.
That was a little too close.
All right, we do not have a student advisory report tonight. Item 6, new business. Paul?
So I'm wondering if we could, in the policy, begin to look at the cell phone policy?
That is already, I believe, I'll double check with Linda here and saying this, thinking that I'm saying the right thing. I believe that policy and dress code have been tabled until the new high school principal is totally in and ready to take those up, which should be, I believe, this fall. So they're on the docket, but they didn't want to make a decision last year without the new principal being part of that discussion,
Okay.
that conversation.
Absolutely in process.
Am I correct?
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So the other item of new business that I'm going to bring up is also one that could potentially go to policy and advocacy. The open meeting law carries a provision with it where public bodies can vote to allow remote participation in their meetings. There are a few members of the committee who have notified me that there are meetings that they will not be able to attend this year, either for business travel or other personal reasons. They're available, they just can't physically be here. I have contacted MASC because I wanted to kind of find out what the scope of our work would have to be to get something like that in if we wanted to allow it. And they don't actually have a sample policy because it's, for municipalities, it's voted by like the city council or the board of selectmen, and then it carries over, because it carries to all the committees that fall under that public body, it automatically carries to the school committee for those organizations. Regional schools are different. The school committee can vote it, and then it flows down to our subcommittees. It would flow down to school councils, any of the public bodies that kind of sit under our jurisdiction. So if it was something we wanted to explore, it would apply to all those kind of bodies that are under our body. Dorothy Presser was kind enough to send me to a couple of different regional school committees that she knows have implemented regional remote participation and do use it fairly frequently, to find out both about their logistics and about the policy that they have. So I have sample policies toward this. So my question to the committee tonight is there appetite to look at something like remote participation? Is this something that the committee is interested in, so that we can continue to have those members who are not physically available to be here but could participate anyway, continue to participate in our meetings? And if so, could we send that on to policy and advocacy? They can look at the various policies that are out there and hopefully pull something together to bring back to the main committee.
I think it's something worth looking into. I feel like it's the wave of the future, and if it's a matter of someone wanting to be here but not physically being able to be here, we'd want them to be able to participate.
I agree.
Okay.
I think we should, for policy, we should take it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they'd be like on a little TV sitting over there.
Yeah.
No TV typically. So the districts that I've already talked to, some of them do literally have a cell phone on speakerphone.
Oh, okay.
And there's a mic sitting right there. So the open meeting law regulations say that the person must be able to hear all of the other participants in the meeting, and that the other participants in the meeting must be able to hear the participant that's remotely participating in the meeting. So it doesn't require video. Some of them do use video, but that seems very infrequent and more towards the large municipalities that are doing that. It's not something that a smaller committee would do. A lot of them use a landline with a microphone right there, so that would pick up the landline, and then the speakerphone function of the landline would actually allow them to participate.
Oh, cool.
So there are, one of the reasons I think it makes sense to bump it to policy and advocacy is there definitely is some variation. Some of them allow for very specific reasons for accessing remote participation. So for instance, one of the key ones that I've seen is some committees allow it for childcare. So lacking childcare, you couldn't make it to the meeting, you could participate from home, whereas other committees do not allow that. They have other specific requirements as far as the reasons that you could miss a meeting. Some of them allow executive session, others do not allow executive session. Some of them, I'm trying to think of what else were differences. I have them kind of, the ones that I've collected already kind of all laid out. But I think those are the things that policy would need to look at and trying to come, number of times that you could, an individual member could participate in a given year. So those are the types of things that I think is best taken up in a smaller subcommittee.
Yeah.
Policy and advocacy could take it up, hash out kind of the details, and bring that back to the full committee.
Yep,
All right.
I will do that.
So any objections to sending this over to PNA? Paul is smiling.
I just want to know what the policy is for if a person is chiming in from a remote location, and all of a sudden we just begin to hear snoring. What do we do at that point?
Who here would do that in our riveting meetings? Paul? I take it you'll be participating remotely from now on.
I'm not making a single comment. I got nothing.
All
As
right,
long as this policy goes behind the cell phone policy, that's my only issue.
goes beyond, behind myself.
Behind.
Well, I can't guarantee that, right? I mean, if it's easy to get a remote participation policy back to the committee, and I think the cell phone policy is far more in-depth, probably. There's a lot of considerations there, even from what little I've heard when I've attended policies meetings,
Do you mean behind meaning timeline?
I'm assuming.
Is that what you mean?
Just to addressing it, just to get
Yeah,
to.
so the
Priority.
discussion is happening at the high school level now with faculty, and I want students involved in that. So before we come up with a document that we're just going to say, here's what we're going to do, to have staff and students invested in that discussion, doesn't mean they're making the decision, but invested in that discussion. And then when the policy comes forward, they understand the reasoning for, many will like the decisions, some may not, but involving them in the process is part of that, is key to that.
We're not going to go to a survey in the community on this, I hope.
No, I don't believe so, no. I don't have any intentions of surveying on cell phone use right now, no. I think key is teachers, obviously, and the impact on learning, both those that like to use the technology and those that don't want to use the technology, as well as students' perceptions. But that will not be the decision. That would be input for consideration by the subcommittee and then ultimately the committee.
Sorry, bad habit. I keep thinking I
Don't
have
touch
the
the mic.
Also, you want buy-in from the teachers and the students, and you want the teachers to feel that if a cell phone policy has been violated, that they're able to do something about it. You know what I mean? Like, if we have a policy in place, you want the teachers to be able to enforce it. So you need the teachers and the principal to be vested in it, because if they're not following the policy, they'll hail from us.
Right, so we can make a law and say, follow it at any time. But if we ultimately want people to be invested in the way that it's enforced, then we involve people in the process of how it's developed. Again, that doesn't mean ultimately if the committee decides that the recommendation isn't what you all like, that you can't make up your own minds. But to involve people in the process, I believe, is important on the other side of the implementation.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay.
So Paul, I just want you to know that we will have a cell policy in place. I mean, I don't want you to think that we're going to keep allowing it to be pushed off,
Will I
but,
be in the old age farm when that happens?
No.
Will I be watching from out there?
and again, it might be like the dress policy, I keep doing it, the dress code policy, where we come up with something this year, and there may be iterations of it as we go along.
It will be in place this year.
Yeah,
That is happening in months. That is not looking to next September.
no.
Okay. Back to remote participation. Any objections on sending this through to policy and advocacy? Okay, I'm going to do it as a soft referral. I don't think we need a vote on this. So if policy and advocacy can take up remote participation, I'll send you information that I've collected already. I do have a couple of districts that Dorothy sent to me that they said, oh yeah, I'll find it and send it to you, and I haven't gotten those back from you. So even after I send you the initial set of what I have, I may have a couple more coming in. So, yeah. Okay. Reports and deliberations, item 7. Open house dates are on here. So I think, have all of you attended open houses before? Okay, so basic knowledge. Paul has not.
Not here.
Okay.
No, it's just, no.
So they do vary by school, but in general, in a lot of schools, there is a kind of collective welcome. And then the parents, the families are invited to go down into the individual classrooms and of course visit with the teachers that are down there. Traditionally, the school committee has basically been part of that welcome process. And,
I'm just going to slide this over. They're so sensitive that they're picking up
oh,
two people at a time.
okay.
I can try and isolate them.
Has been part of that process. So it's a very basic, typically, you stand there, you kind of list off the responsibilities of the school committee, invite the public and the parents to provide feedback back to you. You'll be there for a conversation as the open house is going on, that sort of thing. You hang around for a little while, have conversations with families, and then you go home, and that's kind of the sum of it. In the past, we've typically had a couple of committee members at each open house. If you know tonight which open houses you could attend, because I want to make sure, hopefully, that we can have attendees at all of the open houses that are listed here. If you can let me know that tonight. If not, you can email me down the road and let me know which one of these you can attend, and then I may be back in touch with people saying, can you fill in here or whatnot to make sure that we have attendance at all of these open houses. Is there anything I missed in that process?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Item B, District Communications Committee reminder. This is just a reminder of the upcoming dates for the district communications meetings. So the next one will be September 5th in the Raleigh Town Hall. I know that this was in the meeting minutes from it would have been the May DCC meeting, but we talked about having these meetings in the fall, not only to talk about the budget, which will be something that, is an ongoing conversation, but also to try and find some common ground to move at least some of the regional agreement proposals forward. So I think there are some that are very easy when initially we talked about putting in a capital plan in there, a requirement for a capital plan. I think that's something that there were literally no objections at the table to. In that we're on the school committee, you know, I'd like to think that we'd be pushing for a capital plan anyway, because that's something that to a large degree falls under our responsibility. But to have it codified in the regional agreement, I think, is something that's important, because then there's a basis for all of the parties that are involved in the regional agreement to have an expectation of that capital plan being available. So I think there are some things like that. We'll move through those within the first couple of the meetings. I know landlord-tenant, I believe, was discussing, some of the towns were going back to council and discussing that separately. And then I believe Tracy Blaze said she would set up, or,
I believe Tracy has been in communication with both Neil and Debbie.
okay,
And there is, haven't talked to any of them, but there was some discussion so that when we come back for the first DCC in September,
okay.
we can set up another working group to get that going again.
Okay. And the reason for that was because all the town councils had suggested different edits. And while we may not be able to come to one single landlord-tenant agreement, it would be very nice to have some consistent terms across them, because otherwise, I mean, you don't really want to be treating all your towns separately when it comes to those buildings. So if you could make an effort to attend those, that would be terrific. MASC, MASs joint conference update in item C. So Patty kindly took a break from her vacation daily to check her email and make sure that we got registrations and online on time. I know I've talked to a few of you. As of right now, I believe I am the only school committee member attending. So,
No,
oh, Linda's got back in between.
no, I
Are
have,
you attending?
yes, I have
Okay.
contacted her.
Okay. Did you get a confirmation from Patty? Okay. Maybe we can talk afterwards, because I know the registration are still open. It's just not the official early bird registration.
It was extended.
But that'd be great to have more than one school committee member there, because some of those decisions are very hard when there are 8 events happening in a single time slot, to decide which one is the most important one for your district. Okay. School committee goals. So the goal-setting workshop is September 14th. It starts at 8 o'clock in the morning. Traditionally, so it's set for 8 to 12. Traditionally, it's gone into the several hours. So what I would anticipate during this, unless there's, I'm trying to set up the format right now, which is why I'm inviting your feedback. But what I anticipate doing is going over last year's 2 goals in depth, seeing what we've met, what we haven't met on those, if there is anything that needs to carry over, and then setting up the goals for next year. Traditionally, we've done 2 to 3 SMART goals, so they need to be something that we can measure everything that comes along with that concept of being a SMART goal. So bring your ideas. If you can go over the prior goals, which I know are still stored out on the school committee shared drive, so you can find them there. Go over the prior goals, see if there are any questions that you have, see if there are any comments that you have on the prior goals and our efforts toward them, and then come kind of with an idea, both about the general direction maybe that you want to go in, and we will work to tie that direction in with the district improvement plan, so that there's one strategy moving forward as far as the school committee's involvement down the road and our goals for next year. Right. Fiscal year 2020 budget update. Do you want me to handle this, or you want to handle this?
Yeah, so as far as a fiscal 20 update, as far as specifics, Michelle and I were speaking today we have finance subcommittee next week, and we can talk about closing 19 and how fiscal 20 is looking, but I know you wanted to talk about more from an advocacy perspective.
Yeah, so I can talk about, real quick. So in between last meeting and this meeting, the state actually signed off on their budget. Our Chapter 70 went up slightly, so it's currently listed as $69,210. So it went up approximately $23,000 from, it would have been our meeting in June, I guess, that we last updated folks on that. So that's slightly increased from what we had. The regional transportation and circuit breaker, the state approves a total dollar amount. So for instance, for circuit breaker, they approved $345 million. the amount that we get reimbursed is actually based on the claims against that number. So they're estimating the claims from each and every single district out there. If one district's claim comes in significantly higher, or a few district claims come in significantly higher than what they've estimated, then the reimbursement rate goes down. And that's a bad thing for the districts whose claims have remained relatively, on par with what they have estimated. So we won't know those actual numbers, the dollar values that will be reimbursed for quite some time, but they're estimating that regional transportation will be reimbursed at 82%. So last year it was 77%, so in theory, it should be higher than it was last year. And circuit breaker will be reimbursed at 75%, which it was 77, I'm gonna look at Michelle for this, 74 point something, right, last year?
It's just under 75.
Just
yeah.
under 75, right. So that reimbursement percentage for us should stay relatively level if our claims had remained level. The one thing that this budget does give us, which is something that Linda has been reaching out, and the policy and advocacy in general have been reaching out to other districts, it gives us a very real number, because next year's circuit breaker calculation is based on this year's Chapter 70. And we know that they put about $250 million additional money into Chapter 70. We clearly didn't see any of that. Most of that went to districts that have very high concentrations of low-income students and very high concentrations of English language learner students. So it went to a lot of the gateway cities, the urban districts, saw significant increases in their Chapter 70 this year. Even though the circuit breaker money doesn't come back to us, that does affect our circuit breaker for next year. So our special education reimbursement is based on this year's Chapter 70, the general student funding. We know that for next year, every single district that's out there will lose $1,920 compared to this year on their claims for circuit breaker. So we last year we had 35 claims for circuit breaker. So you take the 35 and multiply that by basically $1,900. It's significant amounts of money for a lot of these districts. For many of them, it will possibly negate all the Chapter 70 that they received this year. So essentially, it would be like no gain if you kind of married the two together. For some of them, they'll lose more circuit breaker than they gained Chapter 70 this year. That information has kind of been added to our advocacy so that we can reach out to districts, because it's a real number. It's not based on modeling anymore. It's not based on, mass budget, kind of looking at what things might be in 7 years. These are real numbers that we know districts are going to lose next year because of this increase in the Chapter 70 this year. So it's not good news. I mean, I don't know, there's no way to sugarcoat this. It's not good news. For some of the districts, if you're looking at a Worcester, that circuit breaker loss, they're gaining so much Chapter 70 that it doesn't really matter. It's a pittance compared to what they're gaining. But for any districts like us, our district who are not gaining a lot in Chapter 70, it's going to be a significant hit come fiscal year 21. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to
I
that.
was going to say, I was checking with Michelle, so we assume 72% for fiscal 20. So that's generally, we've assumed 70, 71, 72%. It's generally come in close to 75. So that delta between the small change for fiscal 20 is usually absorbed by that assumption. Starting in fiscal 21, should legislation change and that foundation figure increase and things change, then that bet's off the table. Then we start to go backwards significantly.
Yeah. And if the bills go in as is, this is the type of thing that we could be seeing every year. The Chapter 70 would increase every year, and the next year we would see a significant circuit breaker hit. So, I don't know. I wish there was better news. We'll continue to fight about this. I immediately took that $1,900 number and took it to our legislators. I know that they're well aware of it. They have had discussions with other legislators already. I talked to Representative Hill last week for probably close to an hour about what kind of his strategies have been. I'm meeting with Representative Kelcourse next month in September, and I'm hoping that, he's going to be able to take and amplify that message as well. We're not the only district out there, I don't think, that's putting this call out and understanding that there's a problem, but I believe we're the only district that's actually using the figures that we have to come up with a solid number and say this is going to be your impact for next year. So that's kind of the difference between what I hear out there from other districts and what's happening locally with us and with our legislators, where they can take a very solid message and say, I know exactly what your impact is going to be next year. So I'm hopeful that will give them some credibility and give them some I guess, a strategy to work within the legislature to hopefully get some action on this, because we're going to need it starting next year. Now we know it's next year that this is initially going to hit us. All right, and with that happy news, I'm going to put it on to the monthly report of the superintendent of schools. Item F, please.
Wow. All right, thank you very much. So looking to the start of the school year, we're ready. All of our new hires return Monday. All faculty and staff return Tuesday, the 27th, and then the 28th and 29th are professional development days. So as it always seems to be the case at this time of year, we go into June thinking, oh, we don't have too many hires to make. And life happens, people resign, people move. And so we have, is the number in the low 20s, Kim, new hires? Yeah, it's 23, 24, and growing, yeah.
Growing.
So I do want to say, I'm sorry, I'm getting louder as I'm getting close to the mic. So as a new, I want to give Kim some credit, because as a new piece of our orientation for new hires, we are taking all of the new hires on a tour of the district. At the first time I heard, I was like, what? And then as we talked about it, I'm thinking about what we're talking about at Convocation and this concept of coming together as a district. It's so important that teachers who will live their professional life at Pine Grove and Rowley, or live their professional life at Salisbury or in Newbury Elementary or at the middle school, high school, to never see the other towns, the actual towns, or to be at the high school and understand where students are coming from. It's really important. So it's going to be a great experience. I actually, in the last couple of years, have gotten away from meeting with new hires just because of all the minutia of the job. And so I'm meeting with all new hires, just an introduction and getting a chance to chat. And everyone I speak with, a lot of people have said, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen for an orientation. So I'm really excited about that, and huge kudos to Kim for putting that together, because I think it's a very small piece, but I think it's an important message about it's a we, it's an us. We're a district and we do things together. So in summary, we're ready. The kids are coming. As far as the focus, I don't want to go into great detail here. I could talk a lot, but I think, obviously, that's an understatement. But as I just noted, we spend a lot of time talking about standards and about accountability and about ways we can change and curricula. And I think there's a signal coming from the Department of Ed about a movement towards deeper learning. That doesn't say accountability isn't necessary. It doesn't say standards are bad, because they're not. But when that's the primary focus, we lose the power of the work we do. So we're going to shift a little bit and to say that's important, that's necessary. But what we really need to do is rethink how we do things. The standards that we have through the state of Massachusetts are absolutely 21st century standards. They're comprehensive, they're forward-thinking. Some of the practices we use to teach those standards are not the case, or not so much that. So there isn't a specific thing I can say to you, here's what we're changing, but it's a renewed focus on coming together around rethinking. I've signaled our interest in at least learning more from the Department of Education. It's called the Kaleidoscope Program. They want to pilot some deeper learning, project-based learning. We had how many teachers? 20?
I was going to say, we had over 20. We had over 20 people, middle school and high school teachers only,
no, there were two elementary,
Elementary,
but the
yeah.
majority was the middle and the high school, came together for 3 days, full days, and they were involved in some really high-quality professional development from Buck Institute, which is out in California. And it was basically about creating a question or a problem within your classroom so the students can become very authentically engaged in the learning that happens. And it was probably one of the most exciting and rewarding 3 days that I have had in regards to professional development. Not only the content and what was delivered and how we were interacting, but just the excitement from the teachers. And it was new teachers to teachers who are 5 years from retiring. So I'm really excited about what they're moving forward to do in their classroom next year, as well as some other things that we have to increase the engagement and the excitement of the learners within the district. So, yeah, good stuff.
It's just rethinking, and I think that's not to say that anything that's happening is bad. But in the 21st century, I keep saying this over and over again, and every time I say it, it amazes me. The calendar is turning 2020 in 5 months. And so as we learn, we move into a new decade, it's about being willing to always rethink what we're doing and find new and engaging ways to be better. So you'll hear more about that in more detail. In regards to Friday night graduation, this is a topic that has been, several folks at the high school have talked about it for years. For me, it was particularly important this year in that, actually, we all have juniors graduating this year. In that my daughter's graduating from Pawtucket on the exact same day as Triton, so I'm going to choose my daughter over Triton. So as part of that discussion, someone said, "Oh, we've talked about Friday night. What do you think?" I love the idea. I think Friday nights, there's so many things that would work well about it. We have Triton Grad Venture, which is the all-night substance-free celebration. The thinking would be basically everything's contained on Friday. So families come on Friday morning for the awards assembly, sit here for several hours in the gym for the assembly. They then go on to the junior senior breakfast. They go home. They come back the next day for graduation. The graduation on Saturday happens on Saturday morning. Students then go home and then come back for Grad Venture on Saturday night. Things can happen between the graduation ceremony and then where students choose to go. Before they come back here on campus, sometimes make bad choices. But then the all-night celebration then ends on Sunday morning. So the discussion was, if it was a Friday night ceremony, Friday morning graduation, awards assembly, junior senior breakfast, go home, get ready with families, have students back here for late afternoon to get prepared, have a 6:30 ceremony. It's done by 8:30. Students literally board buses, nice coach buses out here, and they're on their way for Grad Venture celebration overnight, come back on Saturday morning, and then the entire weekend is available for families to plan celebrations. So there's good and bad there. That then gives all day Saturday and Sunday for family celebrations, parties, what have you. On a Saturday, that allows for family traveling from out of town to travel, and then it's easy to be there for Saturday. So we have a survey that's going to be prepared to go out, focus on the high school families specifically to get thoughts on that, and then we'll come back to you. It is a school year calendar change. It's listed on the calendar as tentative right now. It is always listed as tentative, I believe, because it can change with snow dates and what have you. But that is the thinking. There has been no decision for Friday nights, but just to let you know that survey will be going out to high school families to start that discussion. Pine Grove, I won't go through the details, but it's happening. It's 48 hours to Friday the 23rd, which has been D-Day for a year and a half now. As of last Friday, the entire east wing, which is the back wing of the building, the gallery, all of the site work, everything was coming online. There was likely going to be a slight delay for the downstairs of the east wing, which is pre-K and K. That is looking like everything's going to be ready now for the 23rd, if not, probably Monday the 26th. So we will certainly be doing tours, and a date of Saturday, October 5th at 1 p.m. has been set for an open house. It will certainly be completely done by then, but on the first day of school, all teachers will be in their permanent classrooms. All students will be reporting right through the regular entrances. The bus loop that's out back will be in operation. Areas that are going to be loamed and seeded will obviously not be done, and there won't be fields for the balance of the fall. But the playground is done, and I don't think I've ever seen a playground as nice as that playground, quite honestly. But it's for the folks who haven't been to Pine Grove in a while, it is the same building, but it looks completely different. So it's an amazing project. And more amazingly is the fact that this has happened in a year and a half. It'll literally have been under a year and a half because it started in April of 2018. So the big bottom line for you is kids are coming on time, they're going to their classrooms, buses are coming and going, everything's good. So any questions on that? I know Christina sent some messages and on Facebook just to let parents know it's all good, it's all happening. All right. So just in regards to the technology plan, we've had a technology plan. We haven't spent a lot of time focusing on it. So just to alert you that you're going to hear more about the technology plan and going to change and working with Kim, revamping the focus of the technology committee a little bit. We spent a lot of time talking about devices, hardware, network infrastructure, and preparedness. What we haven't spent a lot of time talking about is how we use technology as educators. So with an eye towards how we want to use technology, which will then drive the devices, technology infrastructure that we need. That will be the focus of a revived and revamped technology plan that would be developed with a technology committee that will be revamped and revitalized over the course of this year for presentation in the spring. New website, very much delayed. We had thought it was going to happen earlier. There was some fun conceptual things that Michelle was trying to solve. And then Brett Buckus, who was also the lead district PC technician, this bled into summer. And basically summer from June 14th to August 28th is a blur for the technology folks as they refresh technology and get things set up and revamped. So that has taken a bit of a backseat. We do have a mock-up of the site developed, and it's looking very nice. But as part of that, we want to redo the logo. So we started talking about the logo, and in all honesty, it's not a logo. It's an upside-down triangle with the word Triton in it. It was developed, I don't even know, I think it was when we went to Smart EDU 15 years ago plus, and it was just almost a placeholder, and it just never gotten changed. So we're looking to revamp the logo, involve the community. We were talking about having a student contest, so how to use our art students to even develop the concept that we can further refine. But that will be part of the website process as well. Those will come online in stages over the fall. Stadium repairs. This is ongoing since the stadium opened in 2016. The sinking of the outside walkway against the wall as well as that inside D area. At this point, the permanent fix for the D area and the inside 2 lanes of the track, which also encompasses that northwest corner of the turf, will be done in the next 2 or 3 weeks. David White & Sons is working with Cape and Islands Track. They will work around athletes and schedules. It's not a super invasive process over there. And so the turf would still be used while they make that repair. The larger repair is the length of the spans against the wall on the outside fence. We're still trying to pin down exactly when that will happen and the perfect solution. I hope by September to be able to report to you timelines and what the final solution is. There could potentially be some cost involved. This is all repaired, by David White & Sons. Part of the solution was to perhaps, rather than using asphalt, which could continue to settle, using concrete with rebar, and obviously significantly more cost, but if that was the best fix, using some of the funds that we've accrued in the stadium account to fix that correctly on that outside walkway. So that's something being discussed, that has been talked about with engineers. Nothing has been finalized, but the hope is that, and David White is committed to fixing this. He's going to fix it once. So, it's on him to fix it the right way. So we'll certainly work with him on that. The communication survey that was sent out in the spring, this was a very quick survey that I did literally just to kind of get a dipstick of what people were thinking. The hope was to have it be something that could be answered in a matter of 30 seconds rather than an extensive response. We had 541 individual respondents, which is, I think, a fairly strong response. Had a good breakdown of participation, ranging from almost 15% to 27% at the high school. Overall, the question about how satisfied are you with communications coming from the district, you can see that, where did I go with the combined is 91.7% of folks felt satisfied or highly satisfied. As far as coming from school-based communications, it was 85.1%, the same, very satisfied or satisfied. And then taken as a whole, that folks taking their overall impression of communication across the district was 76.3%, were either kept us fully or fairly well informed. So there's certainly more to unpack here. This is not a perfect survey that gives us all the data we need, and we'll certainly continue to communicate with families, get a sense of how they would most like to be communicated with. I was shocked by the number, and I think the word rely, in the question about which of the following sources do you rely most upon about learning what's going on across the district, that close to 95% of responders, again, 541 individuals, said that email is clearly the primary choice. I think that, again, it's through the comments, and again, not sharing the comments, good, bad, or otherwise, but the comments certainly reveal individuals and information that's not public, but putting layering the comments onto this, clearly families want routine communication. Email is what they prefer for a routine communication, and have had some discussions about making it a weekly digest, kind of like we started at the district level, also from the schools, that comes out the same time every week, so that parents and families know that on Fridays at 4:30, they're going to get the weekly district digest with district-wide events. And from Pine Grove or from the high school, they're going to get a weekly email at 3:30 on Thursdays, and it's going to have all the weekly events. And it was that consistency in communication that was very helpful for families. Social media, I would have thought more people would have relied on it. I think the key is that people aren't relying on it. They like social media for fun, for pictures, for information, for events, but for important information, hands down, emails, and then obviously phone calls if it's an emergency. Email is the preferred methodology for communication. In the case of an emergency, the request was absolutely calls and texts over emails, just because of the urgency and the immediacy of folks don't obviously check their emails all the time, whereas a text and a call comes through instantly. So as I said, not done with that, but some good information for us to work from as we continue to tweak how we communicate with our students and families. So any questions so far? I'm going through a ton of stuff. I know this report went on for a long time. Okay, so for middle and high school athletics updates, obviously you haven't met Tim yet, but Tim Alberts is the new AD. He began on August 1st. He was hit immediately with a decision in regards to middle school softball and baseball. That has been pulled together. There isn't an official league that the MIAA coordinates in regards to to middle school softball and baseball. Obviously, it's a spring sport at the varsity level. This is for fall, I should say. That has happened in years past. It wasn't happening this fall. On August 7th, I believe was the date, Tim came to me and said, it could happen. We might be able to pull some games together, but we've charged families $250. I can't tell you I'm going to be able to have a schedule of, a slate of games. So we made the decision to cancel it, hoping that gave other students an opportunity to sign up for other sports, and then hopefully reassess that in the future. I would tell you since then, several have taken a refund, several students have moved over to cross-country or other sports. Also, in regards to middle school sports, there will, we applied for a waiver, and I think, I don't, Marissa, if you saw that email, so it goes to the chair of the committee, the superintendent, that there were only 18 students returning to high school soccer for the fall. So we applied for a waiver, and I believe it will be processed and approved for eighth graders to play up again. So we had moved from varsity, junior varsity, and freshman teams to varsity JV2, JV1. So those eighth graders would play on that JV1 team. JV2, I always do it backwards, JV2. That first tier team, allowing students to play up to JV1 in varsity. Someone asked, what's happening? Are people moving away from soccer? I think it was just, there was a larger group of athletes that graduated. And so this happens from time to time. But it does look like there's a chunk of athletes at the middle school who will fill in there. Any questions about that, those two? Okay. Alice, just very brief to let you know, we started the drills last year. The drills will get more complex, more advanced throughout the course of the year. We're set up to train all our new hires. Again, I've said it a million times, we will never practice with fake guns, live guns, airsoft guns, paintball guns, in surprise scenarios. Everyone will always know when we're practicing and drilling.
Can I ask a question on that?
Sure.
So if you had somebody that missed the first drill and didn't participate in it, are you going to do something for those individuals to catch up?
So there's been, the first drill was a lot of discussion and kind of walkthrough. So
Yeah.
that will all be rehashed as we
Okay.
go out through the year. So that this is actually being planned through, it's obviously a universal protocol district-wide, but each school is different, the layout, the floor plans. And so these are being coordinated, will be coordinated at a district level, but through the building-based safety committees. But absolutely, there'll be a refresher of what we did last year and what that looks like in a first grade classroom versus a junior level would be, it's a very different experience. So absolutely, slow and steady. So very good news, and this was a while ago, we alerted you to this, that we did receive, we had applied for $80,000. I think that was the most work Michelle's ever done for an $80,000 grant. But it was Executive Office of Safety, and there were lots and lots and lots of hoops to jump through. But this will provide brand-new handheld radios, not Motorola walkabouts, but real quality, used to be VHF, now they're digital, handheld radios where we can communicate with first responders, as well as communicate within the building. It provides some new cameras. It provides updated access control software, so district-wide, all of our access control, and it fixes the intrusion alarm system at this campus, which people don't know has been broken for several years. So that was a significant boost. And so we haven't seen the funds yet, but.
No, we should be getting funds within the next few weeks, and we have to spend it by December 31st, which we will have no problem doing.
We'll spend it by November 1st.
Exactly.
We've never been slow in spending. So you have the letter from the governor and the lieutenant governor just announcing that award. I feel like anytime you get a letter from the governor, it's probably good to recognize that. You're going to hear more about some of the service projects. As you know, Julie Romano is very engaged in this work. Great work over the summer. There's some pictures there. Had a couple different teams. I was sad that the 2 days ended up being 2 vacation days that I couldn't change, but 2 teams that went out to the Habitat builds in Salisbury and participated. And it was a great experience, great press, great to see students and faculty working side by side in service. But also there was a grant that we applied for through Youth Service America. And so we were awarded $9,000 in this to 3 large-scale student service days on 9/11, on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and then on Global Youth Service Day, which is in April. More detail will come out about that. There needs to be large-scale participation, but as Julie would tell you in great detail if she were here, there's a plan to get that all rolled out. So she ended up going to Washington, D.C., I believe, as part of that grant, as part of Youth Service America. So came back very energized and engaged. I think part of the work we want to do around bringing people together is about service, too. It's not an internal focus, but an external focus. And then finally, just to note, we had a team go to Machu Picchu. They're in Peru, and I think it's a great way to end the report here just by showing some of the amazing experiences that our students are able to participate in, thanks to some amazing educators and staff who are willing to coordinate these trips. Two other things to note. I forgot to put in here the capital assessment that we talked about funding through excess and deficiency. That went out for bid for specs. RFPs were received. We evaluated them. We are ready to award a contract.
We are in negotiations with the top-rated firm, and we have our kickoff meeting this coming week.
So then, once we have a meeting, the delivery, there's milestones for delivery of report, but the final report should be in our hands by,
We should have a draft report by November 18th and a final report by December 18th.
there it is. So that will be the start of likely lots and lots of discussions about how best to address the needs on this campus. So I think there's lots of things that we could tell you right off the bat we know are going to show up. There are certainly other things that we do not see. Just to confirm, because there's been some discussion, this is not a full feasibility study. There's no assessment of the educational spaces and should we be building and modifying. This is an assessment of the existing facility and the building envelope and systems and whether they meet the standards of today. So again, that just wanted to give you an update there. And then also to note on the personnel report, someone's name over my shoulder here who has alerted that after threatening for a long time, she is going to retire on December 31st. So we're not saying goodbye yet, but I just wanted to call that out just to make her cry. And to say there's still time to convince her not to go. So she will be very hard to replace.
Is that it?
I'm sorry, unless there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Sorry.
Paul?
So, Brian, I just have a question. On at the end of your report, it talks about Appendix 2 being school council business. Did I not get that?
I'm sorry, no, there wasn't any school council business. I should have deleted that.
And so my next question I want to bounce past you, Brian, is you keep talking about these 25 new hires, okay? But in reality, what we're really talking about, according to the list that I'm looking at, is one teacher at Pine Grove. There's two new ones, but one is left. And then at the district level, we have two new hires, the BCBAs. So all I'm trying to just establish for the people that are watching this is that we don't have 25 new bodies coming into the district.
So-
We do, but we have about 23 that have left.
Yes.
Okay, so there are only a very limited number of new hires that are coming here because of the resignations, retirements, et cetera.
So
Okay.
there are, I don't even believe we added a BCBA, right? I'm trying to think, we didn't add any other, so yes, when I say new hires, these are replacing retirements, resignations,
Right.
leaving for other reasons. So these are not new positions, these
Okay.
are new to us.
Okay.
Yes.
And just one other question, or two other questions, Brian. On Pine Grove School, those two classroom teachers on the front of the personnel report.
Yep.
Were they budgeted?
Yes,
Okay.
yep.
And then the last question, John Lucy is the summer theater teacher. Does John Lucy serve in another role at the school?
John Lucy may or may not be the school resource officer. So-
Okay, is that a trick question? Because I don't know the answer.
Oh, he is, I'm sorry, yes.
Okay.
So John Lucy was a graduate of Triton, is as a police officer in Newbury, is our school resource officer, works for the town of Newbury as the SRO, and so is here all the time, and does have a propensity for the stage, and was a stage dweller when he was here. So yes, any chance he can get on the stage, you should see it, it's pretty good.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Brian?
I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to make a comment that I think it's really great that you guys are going to be doing a district-wide tour by school bus for the new people. I just think that's going to be awesome in terms of
Yeah.
building our brand and having the new people come in, really be advocates for Triton and see that we are a regional school district and get an idea for all of the schools.
We
So
included and I'm excited too, because we also included instructional assistants for that entire day.
Oh, awesome.
And they all have a mentor. The instructional assistants have a mentor IA this year, so we've definitely increased, I think, the capacity of IAs and bringing everybody together for one shared mission and vision, so yeah.
That's awesome.
exciting.
And as I've sat with the new hires this year, there are some, it's an amazingly talented group of new teachers. Teachers specifically, IAs as well, but some amazing educators that are joining the Triton team this year.
To tag on to that, I did one of those once, and I had no idea about anything that I was seeing and forgot about it within a month, probably. It might be something that's worth doing with everyone in their first 2 years, because after a year of experience in the district and getting to know your little piece of the community, you have some mental idea of what you're seeing, and it might fit. It might start to lock in a little better.
I agree.
We need more buses and more tour guides, but we can do it, yeah.
Brian and Al, by the way, have volunteered to be the tour guide, so we tried to get them to have some entertainment as well as some narration, but not sure they
We'll be
bought
okay.
it yet.
I think we'll be okay.
They'll be okay.
I think we'll be good. There'll be no video cameras, there'll be no recording.
Oh, they'll be recording.
Any other questions for Brian? All right. Thank you to the superintendent for his report. Item 8, general action items. Moving on to A, the medical delegation renewal application.
So I certainly can answer any questions about this. This is something we've done routinely. We've had to change and come back to you for reauthorization of this delegation because of the fact that we've changed lead nurses. We've had a series of lead nurses who have become the lead nurse and in 1 or 2 years have retired. Tara O'Keefe at Newbury is the lead nurse now. And so because of that change, you need to reauthorize this medical delegation. Again, all this does is allows the nurse to delegate prescribed medication to individuals, students. So if someone comes down to the nurse and says, I have a headache, she could not delegate to say, okay, whether or not you need ibuprofen or Advil or aspirin. None of that. If there's a nursing medical decision needed, that's the nurse. So this is, so-and-so receives this pill at 1 o'clock every day. This allows the nurse to delegate that to a non-medical professional. So that's all, in essence, what this is doing. So there's lots of signatures for that to happen, but your vote authorizes Narissa to sign off on the document that Tara and I already have signed. The district physician through Anna Jake's Occupational Health will also sign off on this.
So can I have a vote to authorize the chair and superintendent to sign the medication delegation renewal application form effective August 19th, 2019, please?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Linda?
Is this only for the high school?
No,
It's the
district-wide. Yep.
District-wide, okay.
Yep.
Any other questions, discussion? All right, all in favor? Unanimous. And moving on to item B, student handbooks, approval of updated handbooks.
So I'm going to assume that people don't want to go through these page by page. So just in summary, I noted to you, and I think these are printed in color, I forget the exact page on the high school, but there's a chunk that's highlighted in green that was meant to be deleted. I missed that, so that's on page 50, bottom of page 58 onto 59. That's language that exists elsewhere, and that was some old language, and so I simply forgot to delete that. So aside from that, the language, the substance, the policy work that Kim had done last year with our attorney to make sure that our handbooks had the required language, the handbooks that you approved this time last year were substantively correct, but then didn't flow. So the work that was done over this summer was to take them and put them into the format, as you can see. So there's formatted as getting to and from school, in the classroom, around the school, general school information, and beyond the school day. Just so that there's a little bit more of a flow, a table of contents of how to navigate the handbook. So I'm certainly happy to answer any questions beyond literally semantics, editing, flow, table of contents. There's no substantive change that we snuck in and said, ooh, I hope they don't look at this and you're approving. Because again, when you approve these, there's differing opinions between school committees and superintendents. I'm of the ilk that I want you to approve this because this becomes policy. And when it has the enforcement of policy, that's powerful for administrators to be able to make sure that we can hold students to the requirements in the handbook. So.
Actually, hang on. To approve, can I get a motion to approve the handbooks for all 5 schools as presented or modified to be distributed electronically to all students and families for the 2019-2020 school year?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
And I'm opening up for discussion. All right, I'll make my one comment, which is I think this flows much more nicely than the old handbooks do, that it's very logical for our parents to be able to look at, one section and be able to see that this is what happens regardless of how a student is coming into the school when they enter in the school day, and the same thing for the exit, and the same thing for meals, and so on and so forth. So I think that is incredibly friendly compared to what was there in the past, where the topic you were looking for may or may not have been addressed in the index, and it may or may not have been in a logical place. So much more friendly, much more logical, I think, way to lay out the handbooks, which I think is extremely helpful to families.
I just want to say thanks to Kim, because I know we gave her a lot of edits and everything, and I think she took them all.
Well, I think Ketty did a lot of work.
Yeah, I was going to say, so the process here, we went from very user-friendly handbooks, but that didn't have everything in it we needed,
Yeah.
to what Kim did over the course of last year, and then didn't have time to make it all perfectly fit, was to make sure it's legally. So Kim did the hard work of working with our attorney to make sure all the right stuff is in it. And then this summer, or past months, it's Ketty Lakey who we handed it to, and I will also give credit to Patty, who we designed it around one of them, and then Patty went through page by page, section by section, and said, yep, this is in this one, and literally then Ketty moved it all around. So there was a lot of work done by Patty, and then Ketty to make it look this good. So certainly want to give credit where credit's due.
And this is why Patty cannot leave.
All right, well said. Do I hear a motion?
Sorry, Patty. Any further discussion? No? All right, all in favor? You have a unanimous vote.
So can I just to let you know, these are done these are distributed, I was going to say produced. These are distributed to families electronically. If a family needs a paper copy, we certainly take a paper copy. The last 2 pages of this handbook are the signature sheet. It's actually a 2-sided, depending on which one. The technology user agreement signature, and then the handbook signature sheet. Those will be hard copies and distributed to make sure we have signatures back. And that technology user agreement is the newly revamped one that came as a result of the, 4 policies now, that this is the regulation that goes to. So just to make sure you're aware that this isn't, we don't send a, whatever this is, 70-page paper document to every student.
Moving on to subcommittee reports and action items for item 9, A, policy and advocacy.
Okay, we had a meeting this evening, and sorry to piggyback on Narissa's bleak news, but our subcommittee has divided into contacting the MTAs, contacting different districts, selectmen, and the school committee, and we've gotten a lot of response back where they're very shocked to see what they aren't getting. They thought that they would be getting $289,000 for the Promise Act, and realized they're going to be minus $115,000 because of the circuit breaker. So it's good to see these people. In fact, Brian has gotten phone calls from superintendents because they didn't understand what they were getting either. So if it looks too good to be true, it isn't. So we'll have more information as the weeks and months go on with our crusade of getting more districts involved. We're trying to set up a information sharing so that we become a stronger voice to attack our legislators, that all of our communities in Massachusetts should be accounted for, and not just the ones who really, really need it, but we all need some of it.
Finance, neither of my compatriots are here. So I can just say quickly, we met at the tail end of June to kind of start finishing up fiscal year 19. It takes the finance office some significant time to close out the books on fiscal year 19. So finance actually doesn't meet in July. We meet in August to both finish up fiscal year 19 and open up fiscal year 20. So that happens next Wednesday, the 28th. And the minutes on that meeting, of course, will be available for the next full school committee meeting. And that brings us to personnel and negotiations. Dina's not here. Paul, do you?
I don't have anything to bring to the committee's attention, except we have not met during the summer, and my fearless leader has not set up the meeting for the fall.
I thought you were the fearless leader.
Well, I'm not the fearless leader.
We did not receive any written correspondence. So can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you all, and I will see you in, is it 2 weeks?